Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning to all of you. I will take your first aid theory. Okay. So for first aid theory, what did we learn in the last class? We were discussing about hemorrhage, I guess. Right? Is it or not?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So till where did we complete hemorrhage? Jeet?
Ma'am, you gave us like right about the aim of management, something like that.
Okay, aim of management till arrange urgent removal to hospital till there.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now you write down the general management.
Ma'am, topic or question answer?
Huh?
Is it topic or question answer?
This is a after the aim of management. Okay, aim of management, you have written 3 points. Now you write down the general management. Means if I ask you what is the general management of hemorrhage, then you should write all. Okay. And some of you please turn on your videos. Some of you turn on your videos so that I can at least know now whether you all are able to catch me or not. Otherwise, it's a bit difficult. Turn on your videos, some of you. Eta duta on korile hobo. Write down the general management. Number 1. Place the victim in such a position. Place the victim in such a position. Place the victim in such a position that he or she will be least affected by the loss of blood. That he or she will be least affected. He or she will be least, L-E-A-S-T, least affected by the loss of blood. Will be least affected by the loss of blood. Place the victim in such a position that he or she will be least affected by the loss of blood. Number 2nd point you write down. Number 2, lie the victim down. Lie the victim down. Lie, L-I-E, lie. Lie the victim down, D-O-W-N. Lie the victim down and elevate the legs. And elevate the legs. And elevate, E-L-E-V-A-T-E, elevate the legs in a semi-flexed, and elevate the legs in a semi-flexed, S-E-M-I, semi-flexed, F-L-E-X-E-D, semi-flexed position, P-O-S-I-T-I-O-N, position, full stop. This prevents, T-H-I-S, this prevents, P-R-E-V-E-N-T-S, this prevents aggravation of spinal injury. Aggravation of spinal injury. S-P-I-N-A-L, spinal injury, I-N-J-U-R-Y. Aggravation of spinal injury or breathing impairment. Or breathing impairment. Or breathing impairment. Okay, I'm repeating again. Lie the victim down and elevate the legs in a semi-flexed position. Full stop. This prevents aggravation of spinal injury or breathing impairment. So you will have to make the patient lie down, okay, in a semi-fowler position. That means the head end, okay, the head portion will be elevated. Why this position is given? So that the person or the victim can have proper breathing, okay. Because of spinal injury, you might have some kind of breathing difficulty. So because of that, this semi-flexed position is to be given to the patient, okay. I will share with you one screen. You just see the screen. Are you able to see the screen? Are you able to see the screen or not?
No, ma'am.
Yes or no?
It,
No, ma'am.
no, ma'am. It's loading.
Acha Roba. Semi-flex position. I just wanted to show you the picture actually. Now?
Yeah.
Now is it coming?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is the semi-flex position. Okay. Okay. The patient's head end means this is the head end. The patient's head end is elevated. The bed is elevated. Whenever the person is suffering from breathing difficulty, okay. Whenever the victim is suffering from breathing difficulty, you should give this position. By giving this position, you will help him restore breathing. Okay. So this is the position that I was talking about, semi-flexed position. Lie the victim down in a semi-flexed position. Why? For aggravation of spine's got assessment. Okay, at the back is your spine. So for aggravation of this spinal injury and for breathing difficulty, this position is given to the patient. Okay, did you understand? Did you get the semi-flexed position?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes or no? Okay. Number 3, write down control bleeding. Third number point, you write down control bleeding. See. Number third point is control bleeding. Number 4, you write maintain airway. The fourth point is maintain airway. AIRWAY. Maintain airway. You will have to maintain the respiration of the patient. Okay, I guess I have started vital signs on respiration. Did I start? Did I start vital signs on respiration? PSM practicals? Yes or no? Say fast. Vital signs to hoisana nai respiration. Jeet, you tell me, did I start vital signs on respiration?
Yes, ma'am, you have given.
Okay. So can also maintain airway. What is the normal respiratory rate? What is the normal respiratory rate? Abhijit Shivam, what is the normal respiratory rate? Say fast.
Ma'am, is it 72 per minute?
No, respiratory rate. Respiration. It's a pulse or no respiration. What is the normal respiratory rate?
Ma'am, 12
Ma'am,
to
you
16.
didn't start.
Jeet said we started.
No, ma'am.
No,
We didn't
yes, you have
start.
given, ma'am have given that.
Huh?
Ma'am, I think,
Yes,
ma'am,
you
I
have
think you
given.
have started that last experiment to vital sign on pulse, I guess.
We didn't start respiration.
No,
No, you have
ma'am.
given, ma'am. You have given.
I've given. Then tell me,
Yeah.
Jeet, what is the normal respiratory rate?
Ma'am. 16 to
How
20.
much? Huh?
16 to 20.
Yeah, 16 to 20 breaths per minute, right? So you will have to, that is the normal respiratory rate. So you will have to maintain the airway of the patient, okay? Number 5, you write down, prevent the loss of blood. Number 5th point, you write, prevent the loss of blood. Prevent the loss of blood. Oh, sorry, prevent the loss of body heat. Don't write blood, huh? Prevent the loss of body heat. BODY, body heat. By putting blankets. By putting blankets. BLANKETS. By putting blankets under and over the victim. By putting blankets under and over the victim. So you all know, whenever we suffer from loss of
Ma'am,
body
under
heat,
है.
under and over. Under and over the victim. Under and over the victim.
Ma'am, can you
Wait.
repeat number 4 point?
4 point.
Yes, ma'am.
Maintain airway.
Yeah,
Number
way.
4 is maintain airway. 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 1 minute, huh? I will show you one picture. Wait a second. I will show you one picture. You just try to see the screen. Are you able to see the screen? Are you
Yes,
able to
ma'am.
see the screen or not? So what
Yes,
have you
ma'am.
written? Prevent the loss of body heat. Whenever we suffer from loss of body heat, whenever we feel cold, okay, thanda, whenever we feel cold, what do? We put the blankets, okay, under means below. P dot, okay, below you will put one blanket, and over means above. So under and over the victim. Why do we put these blankets under and over the victim? So as to what? Why do we put blankets? Manoj, why do we put blankets? When do we put blankets? When we feel hot or when we feel cold?
When we feel cold.
When we feel cold.
Okay, so because of
Excessively.
excessive loss of blood, okay, hemorrhage means what? Hemorrhage itself means bleeding. So when we have excessive loss of blood, what happens? Our body shivers, okay, we feel cold. So because of that, the patient might suffer from hypothermia. Hypothermia means the patient might suffer from excessive cold. So because of that, to restore his body heat, you will have to provide him blankets. That is under mane bitorat, and over means upper mein, okay. Under and over the victim, you will have to put the blankets, okay, so that he can regain his body heat, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Number 6 point, you write down. Number 6 point, the last point you write, victim should be kept at rest. Victim should be kept at rest, 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 comma. Victim should be kept at rest, comma, as movement will increase. As movement will increase. As movement, MOVEMENT, as movement will increase, INCREASE, as movement will increase, heart action. So what we should do, we should ask the patient to stay in a resting position, okay, and he should not move around here and there. Movement should be restricted, okay. He should be asked to take rest, to take sleep, proper sleep. Why? Because it will increase his heart action. Our heart action to basically increase hole, what will happen? Okay, it will lead to loss of blood. Okay, and the blood will flow more faster. And if the blood flow is more faster because of overactivity, what will happen? It might lead to blood clot. Okay, which might lead to further damage of the victim. So you should ask the person to take rest lobo lagibo. Okay, not moving around here and there. Okay, so these are some of the general management of hemorrhage. Okay, next you write down the special forms of bleeding. Next you write special forms of bleeding. Underline it. Special forms of bleeding. Special forms of bleeding. BLEEDING. So special forms of bleeding, there are almost around, see, special forms of bleeding, there are around 9 types. Nota types are say, okay, in special forms of bleeding. So but these things will be so many, it will be too many for you. That's why I will just give you 6. I will give you till 6 points. Okay, that is bleeding from the scalp, bleeding from the nose, bleeding from the ears, bleeding from the eyes, bleeding from the mouth, and bleeding from the gums. So these are some of the special forms of bleeding which you should know. So I will give you only 6 points out of 9 because it will be too many. Number 1, you write bleeding from the scalp. Bleeding from the scalp, SCALP. Bleeding from the scalp. If you have any kind of bleeding from the scalp, what will you do? So write down
Ma'am,
scalp
what is scalp?
wounds. What is
Ma'am,
scalp?
what is
You tell me to what is scalp? You don't know scalp. Anybody knows what is a scalp?
Oh, this.
Hmm? Your whole head. Okay, your scalp is covered with hair. Okay, Jeet. Your scalp is covered with your hairs. Your head is known as your scalp. See here. In your scalp, you have dandruff, right? Is it or not?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
In your scalp, what do you have? You suffer from dandruff. Sometimes you suffer from ga. Okay, sometimes you suffer from some kind of what is that? Blisters and all of those things. So mainly in the scalp, we suffer from dandruff. Okay, scalp is the thing that is they covering your whole head. Okay, I will show you the picture. You see. Are you able to see the screen?
Not yet. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Hmm? So this thing is your whole scalp. This is your
Yes.
scalp. The gute kinida, everything is your scalp. Okay. These are your scalp. See, these are scalp. Are you able to see? So this is your scalp. Jeet, is it clear?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Will be the symptoms. You will have to know that. Okay. Write down. Scalp wounds bleed. 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 Scalp wounds bleed profusely. 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 Due to scalp wounds bleed profusely. Mane bahut besi ke. Okay. Means the bleeding is too much. Why? Scalp wounds bleed profusely due to due to TO2. Number 1 likha. Don't write number 1, just put a bulletin at a dot. Put a dot and below and write rich blood supply. Rich, RICH, rich blood supply. So in your scalp, okay, that means in your head, the blood supply is very rich. Okay, write down rich blood supply. Number 2nd point you write down. Second point you write down. Skin covering. Skin covering the skull. Skin covering the skull. SKULL. Skin covering the skull. Skin covering the skull is normally NORMALLY is normally tightly stretched. Is normally tightly tightly stretched. STRETCHED is normally tightly stretched. That means the skin, okay, the skin that is covering your skull. Skull means, which one is your skull? Do you know which is your skull? SKULL.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the skin that is covering the skull, okay, in your head there is a skull. So the skin that is covering the skull is very tight. You can touch your head, okay, you can touch your own head and you can see that the skin is tightly stretched. Whereas in your hands, tumar hatot, tumar borit, okay, in your hands or legs or even in your neck, if you stretch the skin is stretchable. Kintu in your head, tumar in your head, okay, if you try to stretch, you can't stretch it because the skin is so much tight in our scalp. Okay, the head is so much tightly packed. So because of that also, what happens? The bleeding is too much excessive. For example, at a balloon to loa, okay, you take one balloon as an example. When you blow air into a balloon, what happens? The balloon becomes so tight, and just with a prick of a needle, at a needle definite way, if you try to punch it, what will happen? It will just burst open. So same like that to your head also. Your head, the skin covering the head is so much tight that whenever there is an injury in the skull, there might be profuse bleeding. That means bleeding might be too much because of the tight stretched skin over your scalp or your skull. Okay. The third point you write down. When damaged, third point, write down the third point. When damaged, DAMAGED, when damaged, the skin, when damaged, the skin, SKIN, when damaged, the skin splits open. The skin splits, SPLITS. The skin splits open, 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 leaving a gaping wound. Leaving a gaping wound. Gaping, GAPING, mane eta gap, okay. Leaving a gaping wound, WOUND. Leaving a gaping wound, WOUND. So like I already told you that as our skull is, the skin covering the skull is very tight, okay. So because of that, whenever there is any damage on your head or on your skull, what happens? The skin, okay, the skin splits. The skin splits open and then there is a gap, okay. Like for example, I gave you the example of a balloon. Whenever you blow a balloon, it becomes so tight, or at a just needle dikini, if you try to blow it off, what happens? It will just burst it. So just like that, our head also, as the skull is tightly stretched, even if there is any injury or cut, it becomes two part, okay. It used to stretch in the middle. So because of that, there is excessive blood flow from the head whenever there is any kind of injury on the head, okay. So write down the sign and symptoms. Write down the sign and symptoms. Next, you write down sign and symptoms. SIGN, sign, and symptoms. SYMPTOMS, sign and symptoms. Number 1, you write pain. PAIN, pain. Sign and symptoms number 1 is pain. PAIN, pain mane big. Okay, PAIN, pain, comma, bleeding of the scalp. From your scalp there will be bleeding. Okay, bleeding of the scalp. Bleeding of the scalp, SCALP. Bleeding of the scalp. Full stop. Number second point, write down number 2. Smelling around the wound. Smelling, S-M-E-L-L-I-N-G, smelling around the wound. Smelling around the wound, W-O-U-N-D. You know that whenever there is any injury, whenever there is any blood, what happens? It both gundwai, okay? It's very smelly. It's not the smell is not pleasant. If you go to hospital, so many blood stains are there, okay, this and that, so much dirt. Because of that, the smell is so bad, especially when your blood clots, or especially when your blood is becomes dry, okay, it becomes smelly, it doesn't give a pleasant smell. So there will be smelling around the wound. Tumar wound or tumar ghat, mane what will happen? There will be at a bad smell. Okay, there will be a bad smell. So smelling around the wound. Number third point you write down. Number 3 you write possible sign and symptoms of possible 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 sign and symptoms of possible sign and symptoms of possible sign and symptoms of skull fracture. Possible sign and symptoms of skull fracture. Okay, so there might be skull fracture also, there might be fracture in your skull. Okay, so because of that, you can go for MRI or else CT scan. Okay, so after doing CT scan and MRI, you will come to know that whether there is any kind of breakage in the skull. Okay, whether there is any damage in your brains. Okay, so all these things you can come to know through this test. Number third point, fourth point you write down signs of brain damage. Signs of brain damage. BRAIN. Signs of brain damage.
Please, please.
Signs of brain damage. BRAIN. Brain damage. DAMAGE. Your head is very delicate. Okay, our skull is very much delicate. See, for example, Kisuman Laura, Kisuman, some of the boys, they go for bike race. Okay, they go for high speed. So what happens? They used to sometimes suffer through accidents. And after accidents, some of the youngsters, okay, many of them are admitted in OPDs and all. Why? What happened? They used to say because of accident. They had a bike accident. Okay, so because of that, they had injury in their skull. Sometimes they even go to coma. You know, I guess, what is coma? Do you know?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, you know what is coma. It means the person becomes totally unconscious for several days or months or years. Okay, so what happens is that because of brain damage, because of basic skull fracture খুব বেশি হয়েছে, okay, নহলে like the brain has got damaged, because of that the person goes to coma. So you all should be very much careful, okay, while riding bikes or while riding scooties or scooters. Okay, these two-wheeler things are very much dangerous, so you should always go on a medium speed or low speed, not high speed. Okay, because accidents are unwanted, it can happen anytime. Okay, so you all should be very careful, and you should also wear helmets. Okay, many people, they doesn't wear helmets, but these days it's mandatory, so everyone does wear. But before, like, the cases in hospitals are mostly because of accidents, and that also youngsters, tomorrow or nisna, like you all. Okay, there are lots of cases. So what happened? There is a sign of brain damage, and our skull, as I already told you, it is very much tightly stretched. Amar matha, means in our skull, the skin is tightly stretched. So anything that is injuries to the skull or to the head portion is dangerous, because our brain is there. Okay, it is one of the vital organs. Our brain is there inside our head, inside our skull. So we should preserve it and we should take care of it. Otherwise, the consequence is not good. Okay. Next, you write down first, second, third, fourth. Past number fifth point you write down. Number 5, unconsciousness. 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 So it is obvious that if you have a brain damage or if you have skull fracture, the patient might or the patient is prone to go for unconsciousness. Okay, unconscious money. What is unconsciousness? Anybody knows what is unconsciousness? Nobody knows unconsciousness. Wako unconscious? Hmm?
बेहोश होना
Huh?
बेहोश होना
बेहोश होना. Okay, loss of consciousness, right? You all are conscious or unconscious?
conscious
Conscious. Okay. So unconsciousness means behosh ho jana na, what you said. Okay. So these are some of the sign and symptoms of skull fracture or scalp injury. Okay. Next you write down treatment. After the sign and symptoms, write down the treatment. Means what are the treatments that you should do? Treatment. TREATMENT treatment. Number 1 treatment you write. Control the bleeding. Obviously, the first point is you will have to control bleeding. Okay, control the bleeding. BLEEDING. Control the bleeding using USING. Using. Control the bleeding using direct pressure. Using direct pressure. Using direct pressure. Using direct pressure by using dressing or bandaging. By using dressing or bandaging. By using dressing or bandaging. So how will you control the bleeding? You will control the bleeding by doing dressing or else by bandaging the head, okay, or the scalp. Number 2 point you write down. If the casualty is conscious, if the casualty is conscious, if the casualty is conscious, lay him down. If the casualty is conscious, lay him down. Lay him down with the head and shoulders slightly raised. With the head and shoulders slightly raised.
Ma'am, head and
Head and shoulders. Shoulder. SHOULDERS. Head and shoulders slightly raised. Slightly raised. RAISED. Slightly raised. With the head and shoulders slightly raised. If the patient to conscious hoy, then what you will have to do? You will have to let him sit. Okay, and you will have to either let him sit or let him lie down, and but his head portion should be elevated. Okay, and then his head and shoulders should be slightly raised so as to control the bleeding. Okay, number 3 point likha. Check breathing, pulse. Check breathing, pulse. Check breathing, BREATHING. Check breathing, pulse, PULSE pulse, and levels of responsiveness. And levels of responsiveness at 10 minutes interval. And level of responsiveness at 10 minutes interval. And levels of,
again say again
check breathing. Breathing means the respiration. Okay, check breathing, pulse, PULSE pulse, and levels of responsiveness. And level of responsiveness. RESPONSIVENESS. And level of responsiveness at 10 minutes interval. At 10 minutes interval. So after every 10 minutes, okay, after every 10 minutes, you will have to check the victim or the patient's respiration rate, respiratory rate check koribo lagibo, pulse rate check koribo lagibo. Okay, you have to check the pulse rate, respiratory rate, okay, of the patient. After every 10 minutes, you will have to check the respiration and pulse rate of the patient and level of responsiveness. Level of responsiveness mane jodi tumi kiba kotha koi ase, means if you are saying something to the patient like what is your name, are you able to listen to what I'm saying? Okay, if the patient is responding to you, that means the responsiveness is good. Jodi patient e ekku koa nai, okay, no answer from the patient, that means the responsiveness is not good. Okay, so you will have to check for the responsiveness of the patient. If you ask what is your name, if the patient is not answering anything, that means the level of responsiveness is not good. Okay, if he answers, that means it's good. Okay, so you join the meeting again, join the class again.
Ma'am, for theory or practical?
It is practical.
Okay.
Mm. Leave the meeting.